So here we are in my original photograph after it's been painted. This is the full finished piece. And there are many things that I was able to use in the way of mixer brush in order to create this piece and to end up with this, what I believe to be a gorgeous piece. So I'm going to go back quickly to the beginning where I will take away everything initially and take you backwards and remind you that this was the original photograph that I took. Then I took that same picture into Photoshop separately and I created find the stylize and find edges, and then I ran it through Topaz to give it some sharper edge lines and what have you in the red, because I knew that it would be difficult to see it through the green. Then I did another layer where I added the linear burn, and I also highlighted certain areas and blurred out other areas at the time. And again, intuitively not knowing exactly why I was doing what I was doing, but I had a vision and it was just unfolding. I did one more layer and put that in a soft light with 100%. And as you could see, as I built more and more of the layers, it became darker and darker, and certain areas were a little bit blurred out and a little bit cartoonish, which was an artistic choice that I had made. So then the final piece was just brought again one more layer at 100% opacity at normal, and that was the very end of what I was going to do before I started to paint. Now normally I would encourage you to have done the move, come out and bring that back in as a separate document and to begin to paint on it, which I did not do. That was, just a little bit of inexperience. I was just starting to paint again at that time, and it was just something that I missed. But I encourage you, when you do painting, that you try and use separate layers, perhaps for colors, architecture, different types of areas, etc. But in this case, I used only one layer. So what I'm going to do now is show you this was my finished piece after I had gone and painted everything. So as you can see, if you go to the original and look at the nice straight, even lines, etc., it was pretty clear that these were electrical lines. There was some cars here. There was a garbage pail, a nice little tree, some flags, etc. They were quite obvious. And when I was done, I was not wanting anything to be really straight and perfect. I wanted it to be a little bit messy. In fact, I really liked that. And it felt a bit like finger painting as a child, that I could do whatever I wanted. I didn't have anyone telling me what to do. I didn't have to adhere to any kind of theory or that sort of thing. And I just intuitively went with my own feeling and really enjoyed painting. So when I finished the painting, I realized that I wasn't quite happy with the full end result. I really loved the painting. I love how it turned out, but I wanted another little something. The original building was green, so I added another overlay, and the overlay itself changed a bit of the green color, but it kept the original green color, which for perhaps if the owners were ever to see this, they might enjoy this piece painted of their building, sticking with the colors that are their special color and what people recognize them for. And I also had a little bit of the sun in the background and a little bit in the foreground. But I went one step further and I did another overlay and I liked it even more. And I love how this finished the piece. And it gave it that golden hour kind of look to it. When I was down there at the time, the sun was starting to set a bit. The golden hour wasn't perfectly there yet, but it was getting close. And I really liked how this piece from Jay Johnson was able to finalize the piece for me. It looked a lot less sloppy, I guess is the word I would use. And it just finished it really nicely. And the colors were just what I envisioned. Or probably couldn't even envisioned. It worked out even better than I had thought. So what I'm going to do now is just go back and show you, take you back a few steps, back to the original mixer brush, and I'm going to show you how I went about painting this prior to making decisions about overlays. You already know what I did before I got to the mixer brush. So I'm going to turn that off and I'm going to create a new layer, and that will give me the ability to use some of these examples for you and to do some painting. I'm not going to spend hours and hours like I did on the original, but I will do some painting and I'll give you an idea of what I did to achieve the look of the mixer brush final painting before I did anything else. One of the other things that might be a bit peculiar, I do have difficulty sometimes holding my Wacom pen. My hands can be painful at times, so I may, and I probably will during this exercise, I do sometimes, rather than paint back and forth in this way, I will actually rotate the image so that the painting itself can flow a little easier and make things easier for me when I am doing the painting. So the first thing that I'm going to tell you I did do when I made these choices, originally I had gone to the wet media brushes and I did choose a brush. And in this case, I am using something different than I did originally, and that's okay. It doesn't matter what you choose. If you don't like it, you can change it. You can go back. If you have layers, you can, go back. You can Control Z. You can, wipe away some history, whatever you choose. But for the most part, make a choice. If it doesn't work out, give it a change and see if something else works. So I decided to do this rough round bristle brush. And then I came over to here, and this comes up when you use this icon. As you can see, it's turned off, turn back on, and that's where we found those little controls for brush tip shape, shape dynamics, scattering, texture, etc. And in some cases, I would use those, and especially if I was going to do painting that isn't a painting over top of a photograph. With some instruction, I might get better at that, and hopefully that's the case. But for now, this is what I did. So when I chose a brush tip shape, I went to this number 17. I did not want to use any shape dynamics, scattering, or texture. I simply wanted a brush that was going to work with me to basically blur the lines, bring together an image that was recognizable, but not necessarily perfectly recognizable, but I also didn't want it so abstract that you didn't know what it was. But I think in the end, I did achieve my goal. So now I will show you some of the things that I did. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I am going to rotate my image. And that should take a moment because I do have a few layers here. And as it turns, the other thing I'm going to do is make sure I have a larger brush, which I don't. So I'm going to take my Wacom tablet and I've enlarged my brush. And in the meantime, I'm also going to enlarge the area that I'm going to paint. And with the space bar, I can use the hand and move this around any way I wish. So I'm going to start. It doesn't matter where I start because I kind of go random. I'll start here, I might go over there, come back and what have you, and fill it in as I go along. So the first thing that I'm going to do is select my brush, my B for brush. Already mentioned that I had chosen this rough round bristle. I already have 17 as my brush tip, turned off all my other options, and I'm on the correct layer. Nope, sorry, that layer should be here. I'm going to add a layer so that it's actually over top of there. So let's get started. Now my brush is too big, so I'm going to shrink it a bit. And I'm just going to see, I've got it at moist. So it's the brush is 10% wet, the load is 5%, the mix 50, and the flow 100%. So at this time, I'm going to give it a try and see how that feels. And the angle, I just moved my Wacom a bit, which made it easier, and I'm getting rid of some of these perfect lines. And I do like that. I think I'd like to get that to go a little quicker. So I'm going to add the mix a little higher and the load and see what happens if I working on this. Let's say, let's mix a little higher and a little higher load. And as you can see, I'm just going along and randomly doing this. I'm going to wet that a little bit more. There we go. I needed to get that a little wetter. Now I brought some of those colors streaked down, and that's okay. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to just lightly touch up this original sign. This one I'm not as worried about because it's not the front sign. The other one I'm going to be a little bit more careful. So here I am again, just randomly painting away. I think I will bring the wet down a little bit. It was getting too mushy there. So there we go. Paint, paint. If you go outside of the line, it's okay, because in this case, I'm trying not to make it perfect. And again, I'm kind of sticking with colors that work together. If you want to make separate layers, you can do that. So yeah, so this is all I did. And it took me hours to make decisions about how I wanted to do it. I would move back and forth like this. Sometimes I pressed very lightly. There is a pen pressure option there, and that would allow me to just be a little bit gentler at times. I don't like this going back and forth this way, so I'm going to continue to find areas that allow me to go back and forth this way. And that with this piece here. Nothing there, but here we have something that we can get started on. And I'm just, again, paint away. And as you can see, I'm kind of just scrubbing along in some ways. It's having the pen stylus is pretty interesting because it's not a paint brush, but it feels quite nice in your hand when you are doing this kind of painting. And I'm really enjoying it. Again, I see these lines here that are a little bit more elaborate. You can touch them up really, just barely touch them up and make them stay quite nice if you wish. Again, an artistic choice. You can certainly do that, and maybe just occasionally do that. Keep some of it randomly. And again, not perfect. And I'm not counting. I'm not saying, oh, if I put it here, I should be there. I'm just doing it randomly. Just intuitively saying, yep, I like that. Yep, that's working for me. And if it didn't, I could just go like this and bring back a little bit of the color there. I could do a Control Z, or if I had a separate layer, I could fix it up a bit. So I did that much. I'm going to go now into the greenish part here. Do a little bit. If you want to leave some of those markings, that's fine too. And I do like doing that sometimes, so it's not all just one straight line, such as that. I'll do a little bit here, here, and there, and again, Try not to make it perfect. And trying to keep again some of the colors more together, because the more that you keep the colors together, the more that it can keep somewhat of the original look. So again, go over here, tap on these, and again you can see I'm not painting every single little spot. I'm just doing what I think works. And at the end, when I do a final overlook of everything, I may make a change then. But I'm just doing a bit quickly now, not just for your sake, but I did do a little bit of quick painting at the time because it was hours and hours, and got a little bit tired and I'd put it away and then bring it back out. But it was really enjoyable. Again, this up and down is working very nicely for me to be able to have turned this around. You can change your brush angle to make it easier for you if you were using a mouse or a Wacom for that matter. But for me, having this turned right around really helped. It also gave me the ability to see things a little differently. When you see something upside down versus straight up and down, there's always something that can look a little different and could inspire you to do something different. If not in this case, perhaps future. It could give you an idea for another project. So don't be afraid to be different, to go outside the box a bit. And as you can see, I'm not painting every single spot here, and I may come back to it, but for now I'm not. And the leaves are going to be a little bit finicky, so I'm not going to work with those right now showing you, because again that could take quite a bit of time. But the idea here, as you can see, kind of stuck with colors, and that really helped me right there. I didn't get right into the reds and stuff, but I did with some of the other colors. Got prepared to go around the red there. And really, before too long, the painting was really coming together. And it's not by far finished, but in a couple of minutes I'm going to turn it around and let you have a look at what I did get done in that short period of time, which I would recommend that you take a lot more time than what I am right now. This is really being done in a hurry. But the idea is I did not use a color. I just simply decided to mix the colors that were already part of the photograph. And that really made it quite nice, recognizable, and just a little imperfect, just the way I liked it. By mixing it, there you go. There's a good thing. And again, you don't have to do every little spot. If you want to miss something or go back and fix something up that you didn't like, that you did do. There may be lines that you want to keep and others you want to melt away. So it's really coming along quite nicely. So again, my idea was not to spend hours and hours with you on one particular piece, but hopefully you have the understanding that these choices are extremely varied. And every time you go to paint, you could take the exact same picture and using different brushes, different techniques, different amounts of paint, perhaps mixing different colors of paint, whatever the case may be, you could make your picture look completely different. And we may not even know that it's the same picture. But the point being, you have the artistic right to choose and do as you wish. Okay, so I did quite a bit on this angle. Again, when you get into a bit of a corner, or in this case, you're talking about a tree, so I might really enlarge the tree and really shrink the brush so that I can work with the image, the size of the limbs without making them look too out of place. And I was able to do there. And again, each time you make a decision, you can make it look totally different. Try and make it look the same. And each person is going to be different. If you're working on a piece for someone, they may have a totally different vision in mind. And if you're asked to do something for someone, you have to keep that in mind, that even if you prefer to do things a certain way, if you're working for someone else, you have to keep that in mind, that it's really their gift, their final result that's going to hang in their wall. So no matter how much you may or may not like it, done the way that they've decided, you do what you can for the person who has made the decision to hire you. And hopefully, there's no reason why you can't spend the time now learning more and more to prepare you for what it is that you may want to do in the future. And I myself, I am not working, I am not well, and it isn't something that I can pursue at this time. However, had I have known that I had this talent when I was younger, it perhaps could have sent me on a totally different path. I do remember taking graphic arts in college as a side course, that in photography, and I loved both, but I really felt that you had to be perfect, that you had to be able to draw, that you had to make perfect pictures, or you were not worthy of being called an artist or a photographer. And it took me years to finally say, yes, I am truly indeed a photographer, and a very good one at that. And I also have become a digital artist. And I think that I believe, not just think, that I do a pretty good job. And not just family are saying how much they like my work, but many people that have had the opportunity to view it. So I have to trust and believe that it's not just me who has believed that my work is worthy to be seen. I have been published in many magazines, and I think that in itself is a nice, beautiful message to us that when we are granted that opportunity, it certainly feels good to know that someone else thinks that our work is worthy. I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to rotate that image, and there we go. If we take a good look at the areas that we are working in, you can see I had turned it sideways, but this area here, it took me quite a while just talking through this. Some of these lines I had touched, I wasn't fully finished, but I started them, and I would definitely go back and finish them. And when you look at the final piece, you can see that I did in fact come back and do quite a bit. I got rid of a lot of the lines. Here and there you could see that I did have some showing so that it did stand out. But overall, it was trying to be a bit imperfect. So there you go. It's my piece, Cilantro, finished in the form in which I really like it. And I hope that you enjoyed the tutorial on how I use the mixer brush, how I was able to use the controls to use different techniques in order to paint away. In my case, I was painting over a photograph, and it is quite different than actually drawing. And for those of you who are talented enough to draw, I'm really excited to see what you could do on this digital canvas. And for those who are like me and just want to paint over a photograph, I'm excited to see your work as well. So if you would be so kind as to let me know that if you enjoyed this course and it's helpful to you and you've decided to do some painting, I'd really love it if you could tell me or tag me and let me see what it is that you've decided to make. I am thrilled always to be inspired by others' work and to see how even when we all watch the same tutorial, the things that each of us come out with. Yeah, I'm excited to see your work, and I'm thrilled to be able to have offered this tutorial, and I was very happy to share it. So to all of you, I wish you well and hope to see some new paintings really soon. Take care and talk to you again soon. Bye bye now.